at the Scotts Trade Center. Day 3 of Arch Madness, the MVC tournament, just ended. It was the semifinals round. Final 4 teams, only 2 remain after today's contest. I'm Madeline Kenney. I'm joined with assistant sports editor Dylan Conover, managing editor of the Phoenix, Nader Issa. Let's get right down to business. We opened up with Illinois State in Southern Illinois in the first game of the semifinals today. And, well, to be honest, the Salukis never really had a chance from the start.
ISU had the biggest student section of the weekend as the Redbirds took on the Salukis. Tony Wills opens it up with one of his 2 first-half threes. On the other end, SIU isn't going away. Sean O'Brien gets the putback dunk, but Phil Fain says no with a big block, and then Mike Rodriguez gets the pretty layup in traffic. Down the stretch, it was all Redbirds. Mikhail McIntosh gets the deep 3, and then Phil Fain gets a huge dunk to close out the half. Mike Rodriguez starts the second with a nice layup in traffic and one. He finishes with 11 points, but the Redbirds were too much all afternoon. Phil Fain gets 2 of his 6 points. For David Njai puts the exclamation mark on the win. The Redbirds take home a 63-50 win. They move on to the championship game on Sunday against the winner of Wichita State and Missouri State.
We're going to send it down to Trisha McCauley. She was courtside after the game, giving us a little post-game recap.
Day 3 of Arch Madness here at the Scotts Trade Center. Game 1 of the semifinals was Illinois State University versus Southern Illinois University. ISU came out on top 63-50. Head coach Dan Mueller said his team played a good game and they shot the heck out of the ball with multiple three-pointers in a row, 9 total in the first half. He also gave credit to SIU for coming out to compete today, and ISU is moving on to tomorrow's championship game. For the Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Trisha McCauley.
Nader, let's get right down to it. ISU kind of dominated this game. Can you tell me what were the key factors in this game?
Well, ISU played an all-around game. Not a lot of players played big minutes. No one played more than 25. That was David Njai that played the most minutes for ISU. They got a lot of players in off their bench. It almost seemed like they were coasting a bit because they came out early and because they had such a dominant start to the game. Paris Lee, the MVC Player of the Year, only played 17 minutes. He scored 12 points. Mikhail McIntosh was big. He missed 5 games near the end of the season with a knee injury. He came in, led ISU in scoring today with 15 points. He was big for them. They look dominant, and it's going to be a tough championship game tomorrow.
Now, I kind of want to talk about the Salukis. They really didn't get an offensive rhythm at all, especially in the first half.
Their leading scorer, Sean O'Brien, only scored 4 points. Now, yesterday against Loyola, he was held scoreless for the majority of the game. He couldn't get anything going. ISU saw the game plan that Loyola had against Sean O'Brien. They found ways to tweak it to have success on their own offensive end, but they held Sean O'Brien in check for most of the game, just like Loyola did yesterday.
And now you kind of mentioned Loyola. How do you think the outcome of this game would have been if Loyola was actually against ISU?
Well, Loyola gave the Redbirds a tough test down in Normal a few weeks back, and that's a tough building to play in. The Redbirds haven't lost in Redbird Arena all season. Dating back to last year, they were 22-0 on a 22-game home winning streak. Here, with this many ISU fans, it would have been a similar atmosphere for Loyola, and with their tough defense, with their offense, which is ranked near the top of the nation in field goal percentage, I think they could have given them a better test than Southern Illinois did, but unfortunately the Ramblers couldn't take care of business yesterday, and they didn't even make it to today.
Thanks, Nader. And now moving on to the second game of the semifinals today, Wichita State and Missouri State. It was a lot closer than what people were expecting. Emily Morgan-Stern is down on the court. She gives us a post-game recap.
Wichita State just had their 14th straight win to take them to the MVC Championship for the first time since they won it in 2014. I sat in on their press conference to hear what they had to say. Head coach Greg Marshall said that Missouri State played well, but contributed the Shockers' strong shooting to their win. Center Shaquille Morris said that they're ready to take on the Redbirds tomorrow and said that it'll be a good game, but the Shockers are ready to let the doubters down. For the Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Emily Morgenstern.
Thanks, Emily. Now, Dylan, I kind of want to talk to you. Missouri State really pulled ahead at the beginning of that game.
Yeah, well, when you're playing Wichita State, your margin for error is 0. And Missouri State came out like they wanted to. Athletically, they match up really well with Wichita State, but the problem with Missouri State and a lot of teams that have played Wichita State this year is that they're not as deep as the Shockers. So while we talk about the 12-2, the 15-2 run that Missouri State went on, when it was 17-10, the Shockers went on a 27-10 run of their own. So yeah, it was a good start, but you cannot match the depth of the Shockers, and it's only going to end up catching up with you. And it did. Look at the final score.
Well, then at halftime it was interesting because the tables turned and Wichita State opened up cold. Missouri State opened up cold.
Yeah, that's touching on the depth that I'm talking about here. You have your best players, Alize Johnson and Jared Dixon, who had good games in their own right, but when Wichita State is able to go 7, 8, 9 players deep, putting in quality minutes. I mean, Darrell Willis Jr. had, I think, just 10 minutes, but he had 7 rebounds. That's quality play from a bench player, and it's just like the Illinois State game before. When the best players don't have to play on the court the whole time, when they're on the court, they're going to make more of an impact. So if you look at Alize Johnson, played 39 minutes. Jared Dixon, 37 minutes. They may be better players than the bench players of Wichita State, but when it comes down to the final minutes, they're going to be tired, and Wichita State won't be. So that explains all of the big runs that Wichita State was able to go on.
And now you touched on the depth of the Shockers. That's something that they've had for the past few seasons, actually. Mm-hmm. Who would you say is the most valuable sixth man on their bench?
Most valuable sixth man? I mean, probably Darrell Willis. I mean, all their starters, Zach Brown, Shaq Morris, Marcus McDuffie, Landry Shamet, and Connor Frankamp, they're in and out of the rotation all the time. But, I mean, those are the, for sure, starters. Darrell Willis is probably the guy they go to first, and he had the most minutes that I would say were quality. 7 rebounds in 10 minutes. That's a very high efficiency rating for a bench player. He's obviously not the sixth man of the year. Loyola's Andre Jackson was, but it's not really about one guy on the bench. It's the fact that they can rely on all of their guys to hold the fort down and even contribute a bit more to the lead. I don't really think the Shockers look at it like a sixth man. It's more of like a bench mob.
Thanks, Dylan. And now I kind of want to fast forward to tomorrow's championship game between Illinois State and Wichita State. This was kind of a no-brainer matchup from the get-go. Who do you think are the biggest matchups in tomorrow's match?
Well, the biggest matchups, for sure, in my opinion, is Paris Lee and Landry Shamet. Shamet had a pretty quiet game today, and he didn't really need to do a whole lot in terms of scoring because Shaq Morris, Connor Frankamp, and Marcus McDuffie had great games, all in double digit scoring. But Paris Lee, the MVC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, he's got his biggest test, trying to get ISU to the conference championship. And Landry Shamet, he's first team All MVC. It's only a matter of time before he goes off and has a great game in his own right. That's the matchup I'm going to be looking at. What about you, Nader?
Well, there's a couple matchups I'm looking at. The first involves 2 first-team All-MVC players, which is what you talked about, Paris Lee and Landry Shamet. They both have been leading their teams here at the conference tournament. But I'm very interested in watching McCallum McIntosh go head-to-head against Marcus McDuffie. McCallum McIntosh, before he got hurt, before he had his knee injury, was the favorite in a lot of people's eyes for MVC Player of the Year. Now, of course, he went out. His teammate ends up leading ISU for the rest of the season, and Paris Lee, that is, he takes home the MVC Player of the Year award. But McCallum McIntosh was dominant for the first half of the season, going into the second half before his injury. Something else I want to watch is Shaq Morris. He dominated the Bears tonight. He just looks bigger than every player he plays against. But David Njai, he sat out early in the season with an injury. He came back for ISU. He's really controlled the paint for them and been their big guy down low that is presenting a matchup problem to other teams. If he can help shut down Shaq Morris, ISU might have a chance to take this one home. And
now I kind of want to talk about, do you think that this is going to be a defensive reliant game tomorrow, or do you think it's going to be all about the offense? High scoring, low scoring? What's your prediction?
I don't think it's necessarily going to be all about defense because these guys have players who can score. I mean, Connor Frankamp today, I believe he hit 6 3-pointers, and he's not one of their leading scorers. They still have Landry Shamet. Shaquille Morris sometimes can score. He's mostly out there for defense. But they have guys who are there to score, and then they're getting contributions from other players. Same thing with ISU. They have 4 or 5 guys who can consistently score. So I don't know if it'll be about the defense. I think these offenses are going to be the ones, whichever one can stay most consistent and pace their team, I think that's who will take home the championship.
Yeah, I think a fair score prediction, if we wanted, the score in my guess would be ranging in the 70s. And I don't think that's necessarily a high-scoring game. I mean, maybe for the rest of the MVC it is, but for these two teams, the fact that they are so efficient, 70 points is not really hard. And I mean, you see it here, Wichita State, 78 points after a 37-point first half, and we've seen them get up in the 80s. Illinois State, obviously, with so many offensive weapons. I don't really think 70 points is too high scoring, but I would see a final somewhere in the 70s for both teams.
And now I want your final predictions on tomorrow's game. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Illinois State because Wichita State, for their last 2 games, obviously they've won, and the final score may look like they've won pretty handily, but teams have been able to hang a little bit more with Wichita State than they have with Illinois State. Couple that with the fact that Illinois State was able to rest their starters and their best players for so long today, they're going to be fresher than the Shockers, and I think that's going to come and pay dividends for them tomorrow.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of a 180. Winding down the season, I thought Wichita State was the clear team to beat. They've looked more dominant. I mean, the last time these two teams played, Wichita State won by 40 on their home court. So Illinois State's going to be coming out for blood. They want revenge, and I think they'll get it. I think Illinois State can pull this one off. Like you mentioned, Illinois State rested a lot of their guys today. Paris Lee only played 17 minutes. He'll be fresh for that big matchup against Landry Shamet. They look like the more dominant team, and Wichita State doesn't have as much to play for. Illinois State, this is their only chance to make it to the big dance. Wichita State is ranked number 21 in the nation. They'll likely make it regardless of what happens tomorrow. Illinois State has that fight in them. They've had that all season. They want this to be a tournament year for them with their seniors, Teddy Hawkins, Paris Lee graduating. They want to make the tournament, and I think they can do it tomorrow.
You don't think that there's any chance for an at-large bid with how high their RPI is?
Illinois State? I don't believe so. I think unless this game goes to overtime or something tomorrow, unless it's down to the wire, I don't think Illinois State will make it without winning. They might have an NIT bid in their future if Wichita State ends up pulling out a win tomorrow, but I don't see them making the big dance without winning tomorrow.
They're on the bubble, and their RPI is very good. Obviously, it was better than Wichita State's and got them the number 1 seed in the tournament. But I think Wichita State, I think everyone in the selection committee for the tournament knows that Wichita is probably the better team as far as just X's and O's and pure players. Which is what Nader's alluding to. They would be the team that gets the at-large bid. I think that Illinois State's road to March Madness has to come through Arch Madness, and that's the only way.
Pretty philosophical of you, Dylan.
Yeah, well, do what I can.
Thank you, Dylan and Nader, for joining us. Make sure you check with us tomorrow for championship coverage of Arch Madness. We'll be here at the Scotch Trade Center, and we'll be able to recap the entire tournament. Follow the Rambler Sports Locker in Loyola Phoenix for live updates. I'm Madeline Kenney.